I am predicting, and I'm also anticipating for there to be a lot of layoffs coming forward. Lots of layoffs coming forward. Aaron L, I'll definitely read that super chat shortly. I believe that there is going to be a lot of layoffs. Um, and that's one of the reasons. It's funny because people were saying, why is Elon Musk saying that there's going to be a lot of pain? Why is he saying that there's going to be a lot of pain when Trump gets elected? Well, one of the reasons that he's saying that it's going to be a lot of pain is because we have to go through the Department of Government Efficiency. And what the Department of Government Efficiency is going to do is they're going to go through the government with a fine tooth comb and figure out why they keep talking about we need to tax the rich. One of the reasons they keep saying that we need to tax the rich is because they are not being efficient with how they're using our dollars. That's correct. Our dollars are not being used as effectively as it should. And so not only do we see pain that is happening in the private sector, but we have a bloated government. And Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy is now explaining exactly how that's going to happen and what they're looking for, even though the federal government employ over 2 million workers. Isn't that insane? That's not even including the local municipalities and the state workers, city workers, state workers. The federal government employs 2 million people. I believe that that is insane, personally. But let's let him hear it because I haven't seen this yet, so we'll be reviewing this together. And we're going to talk about the Department of Government Efficiency looking to revive self governance because we need a smaller government footprint.
Vivek Ramaswamy with me this morning. Great to see you.
It's good to see you, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. Happy to have you here on set. I want to get your take on how this begins.
Sure.
What are you looking to cut right from the beginning?
So first is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state. That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over the last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. Rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress. Score some early wins, and then you look at those bigger portions of the federal budget that need to be addressed one by one. So I think that's one way to think about this is how can the President of the United States, who's been elected with a historic mandate, actually do the thing that the voters have voted for. They haven't voted for incremental change here this time, Maria. We have voted for sweeping change, and the voters actually deserve to get it. And we're focused on how to do that as early and as quickly as possible.
So President-elect Trump just said on that soundbite that you're going to make recommendations. So you're going to make recommendations in terms of where to cut after all that you've just said. Then what?
Look, we're not going to be cutting ribbons. We're going to be cutting costs. And so those recommendations are going to be on a real-time basis. But I do want to take a big step back and understand, for people to understand the scope of this problem. Over $500 billion in the first place. The Pentagon has just failed its 7th consecutive audit, nearly $1 trillion of budget. They can't even tell you where it goes.
That's a problem. The Pentagon has over $1 trillion that they can't tell you where it goes. You're telling me, because listen, Biden implemented, he hired 80,000 IRS agents. They budgeted for the IRS to have 80,000 new workers to go after you. If you have more than $600 inside of your Cash App account or your PayPal account or your Venmo, they want they cut. They audit you like never before. They are hunting every single day. They want every dollar that comes to them just so they can give it over to Ukraine. They got every dollar and they want to give it over to Ukraine. The Pentagon failed for the 7th year in a row with no consequences. And now this kind of speaks to what we were talking about last Monday night, and hopefully y'all tuning in to Monday night tonight. This speaks to exactly what we were talking about Monday night. And they said, no. We need to have certain people audited. No, we need to have people to audit and implement change. And if you can't explain where $1 trillion in one fiscal year is going, that is a problem. That's a huge problem. That's crazy.
So I think part of this is exposing for the public the extent of that rot and waste, but then to take steps first through executive action and then laying the groundwork for broader change through legislation as well to rein in that deficit, to rein in that budget. And more crucially, Maria, I know we're talking about this in terms of efficiency, but there's something deeper going on here. This is about restoring self-governance and accountability in America as well. Elected leaders, if they make the wrong decisions, voters have a great choice. You can vote them out and remove them. Most of the people making these decisions, from healthcare to the Department of Defense, are failing on effectiveness because they have no accountability.
U.S. closed fiscal year 24 with a $1.8 trillion budget deficit. Somebody in the chat said, I still don't understand why we in the Ukraine war. You don't get it? You don't understand how profitable it is for somebody to be able to be inside of war? Do you understand how profitable war is? I keep trying to tell people that the Democratic Party is for the rich and they're warmongers. It pays to be in certain industries and be in a war.
Historically, it's been the view of many scholars to say that those people could not even be fired. Now we take a different view with the environment the Supreme Court has given us in recent years, and we're going to use that in a pretty extensive way, Maria, to move quickly.
You're going to have pushback, not just from the left. You may have pushback from those very people who are running those departments, running those agencies. They want as many people as they want in there. You're going to want to fire people. Yeah. So how are you going to deal with that? You're also perhaps looking at pushback from Congress. How are you going to deal with Congress? How are you going to deal with actually...
And I don't understand why Congress will push back unless they're a part of it, which is one of the reasons why you got to drain the swamp.
Having Congress need to change the law.
Well, look, the beauty of this is I think we have a lot of allies in Congress who have their heart in the right place. But what we've learned is over the last 40 years, even conservatives, we've talked a big game for 40 years about cutting the federal government, about reducing the scope of the federal government. Politicians haven't been able to do it. And so Elon and I, we're not politicians. We're businessmen. We're coming at it from the outside. Sometimes if you go inside, you become native to the system. So President Trump, I applaud him for his creativity and his open-mindedness to setting this up for success in a way that hasn't happened before. But I come back to the principle. In the early months, score quick wins through executive action, show what can be done then, and then I think we will lay the groundwork for Congress to have to take meaningful steps in budget reductions for the future. A lot of these discussions we have are theoretical. Right? I have to cut different entitlement programs or whatever. Let's start with the fact that there is massive waste, fraud, and abuse right now. Federal contractors are really exploiting the federal government. You could take haircuts across the board, and they would be no worse off for it. And it's not just about cutting cost, but increasing effectiveness from defense to healthcare. A lot of that is a failure of the administrative state itself, Maria, that rests under the executive branch. And I'm optimistic. It's part of why we've set an end date on this. Our work is done by July 4th, 2026. Unlike every other government project, we don't want this one to last. We want to go in, fix the problem, dissolve, and move on, and set an example for how our federal government should run.
The problem is, A, transparency. We don't have any transparency as to where our federal dollars are going. That's number one. Because if we were transparent, then people could hold them accountable. But if ain't nobody actually asking no questions as to where the dollars is going, then it's just make sure that we blow up the budget. And then B, I was explaining this last week, that most of the time, once you get a budget, they give you a mandate to spend as much as you possibly can so that you can justify that you need the money for the next fiscal year instead of creating efficiencies within the companies themselves. And the government is the worst at this. They give them a budget, and a lot of the times these contractors, as a matter of fact, I'll do you one better. A lot of people not even familiar with this, but I'm gonna break it down. We don't even have to go to this. We just gonna break it down from this perspective, all right? Here's what I've seen. You know what I've seen the latest hustle be? You know what I've seen the latest hustle become? Similar to trucking, similar to buying a box truck, similar to real estate. Over the years, I've seen so many different plays. And you know what the biggest play is that nobody is having a conversation about? Government contracts. Government contracts. That is one of the biggest plays. I've seen people come and go. Oh man, this new real estate hustle. Oh man, this new PPP hustle. Oh man, make sure you get in the truck and buy a box truck, whatever. They don't understand it. Now, where did it go? Ain't no more real estate hustlers because the interest rates went up and don't nobody know what to do. Everybody lost their investments. People was living hand to mouth. Hey, come and pull money out of your homes. Okay, so you're gonna use your home as a credit card to basically reinvest into something else at a higher interest rate. What do you do when the interest rates raise and can't nobody get no money, no free money, and you can't actually afford it and you can't justify it? How do you move when you're actually a high income earner, but you can justify all of your tax write-offs from a business perspective, but you can't qualify for this additional monies to invest in more properties because you don't have you don't have the 1040s to justify it on a personal level. What do you do? Because anybody can tell you, hey, go get some hard money loans, go do this, go do. Okay, so what happens? Who's going to reimburse you when you create this fund and you can't justify the investment and you can't justify making more money and you can't flip the house because ain't nobody buying no homes and can't nobody afford it and you tried to mark it up too high, you couldn't pass the inspection and it's not 2020 anymore. What do you do? Box trucks went out of business. Once logistics and all of the prices and the increases and all of that stuff, and they couldn't charge for the loads that they was charging for anymore. Then all of a sudden, all of the real estate gurus, all of the trucking gurus went out of business. It's the same thing when it comes to government contracts. I see so many people, and I'm not saying that it's not justified. I'm not saying that it's not legal, but I am saying that a lot of these people are pitching it. Not all, because there's some straight up legit people that do it. We got to give some credit to them. But there's a lot of people that are pitching winning government contracts and not necessarily being qualified for it. And then they try to finesse it and say, okay, so now we got to figure out how to get somebody in order to be able to perform on a government contract. I see a lot of people that's finessing. And guess what? Winning a government contract is basically taking taxpayers' monies, but it can't necessarily justify whether or not they should be in that business in the first place. And so there's so much government inefficiency, so much fraud, so much finessing, so many people getting rich as a result of it. And so, it's a reckoning. It's a reckoning. I believe that there's going to be some layoffs. There's going to be some removal of inefficiencies. There's going to be no more finessing. And it's going to be some finessing, but it's not going to be as rampant and as widespread. And it's going to be some things that change. And so I'm all for it. I'm all up for it. If you're able to add value and you're able to run up a bag, you shouldn't have no problem dealing with it, right? Right?